All right, guys, welcome back to our studio here at Counterintelligence. Today, we are going to be doing a complex vein in a black marble. This is a color combination that we did during one of our training courses, and it seemed to be a really big hit, and everybody really liked it, even people that just came to visit the warehouse after the class. So we wanted to make a video on it real quick. It's a very simple color combination, but it's very cool. So we're going to be using our Skyfall and our liquid black pigment is the only two colors of epoxy we're going to be using on this. All right. So we're just going to take our hand and spread our epoxy as usual. You want to put this black down at about 3 ounces per square foot. That's our typical coverage rate. That's going to give you good coverage, but not give you so much buildup that you're going to lose your artwork. It's not going to move too much on you. If you start going 4.5 ounces, your epoxy is going to move a whole lot, and your artwork's really going to get distorted. So we just really don't want that. Get our sides coated. All right. Give my hand a quick wipe, and we will be ready to go on to our blue. Now this color that we're going to use on the metallic, it's a little bit different than most other metallics. It's got a lot of iridescence to it. It changes color depending on what you put it with. We have a technique called a switchblade technique, and I would really like putting this color with black and white pigment in the switchblade technique. Everywhere this pigment hits black, it turns like an emerald green. Everywhere that it hits to white, it turns like an electric blue. So it's just a really cool color. We're going to make us a pretty nice, hefty main vein. We're going to step off of it a little bit, kind of create as a secondary vein. I'll take a stick, just put a few small bits of color out in the field. With black, it takes a lot more color than it does with white to get some accents out in your field, but that's probably about enough. So now I'm just going to take my fingers where I put all those accents out there, and I'm just going to work them in. It's going to look like they completely disappear, but as the pigment begins to float again, you'll see it'll come back. And it's just to get a little variance out into the field. We're not looking for anything specific with this. It's just to get a little bit of color everywhere. You could leave the field solid black if you want to. I just personally kind of like it better if you got just little bits of color running through the field. Seems like it just looks more natural that way. So with this technique, we're not going to overwork this blue. You could use your fingers or you could use a stick. I'll show you both. I'll use my fingers on the first vein that we poured in, then I'll use a stick on this one just to kind of show you the difference. We're just going to try to get the black and the blue kind of working with each other and slightly against each other. We're not really changing the direction of this vein at all. We're just gonna try to make it look as organic as we possibly can. Okay, so that is the fingers, and this we're going to use the stick. And the stick is just a much more controlled movement of the pigment. If you're worried about overdoing something or your color spreading too far, a stick is definitely more useful than your fingers. But if you're on a large project, you can definitely get things done much quicker with your hand than you can a stick. If you have large, say a big island and you got a couple of big massive veins running through it, you can get those laid out a lot quicker with your hands than you can a stick. So at this point now, I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but we're getting a lot of the green tone coming out of this skyfall. I'm going to go ahead and find me a couple spots where I'm just going to make a little bit more bold as far as the blue is concerned inside of my vein. Not necessarily making a new spot. I just want to make it a little bit brighter in a few spots. Nothing major. I'm actually going to kind of create this little line over here. You can't really mess this up. Let's just kind of play with it until it looks like what you're going for. You can also, if you want to just do like a little accent eye pocket out here, that's perfectly fine. You can do that. If you're going to do these little pockets, you don't want to overwork the pigment. You just kind of want to play with it just long enough till you get something that looks kind of organic, and then you just want to leave it alone. All right, something like that. We're going to take some metallic gold spray paint, and we're going to put some gold highlights into this blue, or it's really more green when you put it in black, but the color is a blue. We're going to be pretty liberal with the amount of gold that we're going to put into this piece because we want the gold to pop pretty hard. I'm just dropping off little bits of gold, and then I'm going to come back and spread it all out. Just making this a fun, quick, easy technique. This technique here is tried and true. It works good with so many different color combinations, and I don't think it'll ever really go out of style. So this is a good one to master. Of the 5 techniques that we teach in class, this is probably the one that does take a little bit more practice than the others. Some of the others, the epoxy does most of the work for you. This technique is not overly difficult, but it just takes a little bit of practice to get used to working with the stick to spread the pigments out the way that you want them to go. So when I say it's more difficult or requires more practice, it's not hard. You just have to get familiar with the stick and how it moves the epoxy, and how changing the angle of the stick or the motion of the stick will change the way that it moves the epoxy. So, and again, I'm not particularly trying to go for any shape, so to speak, with this gold. I'm just trying to make it look as organic as I can. Make it not appear as though I just ran a stick through there with some spray paint on it. I just want it to look like it flows with the rest of the vein. As soon as you get that effect out of it, you can go ahead and stop. Okay. We're going to hit this with our 91% isopropyl alcohol. We're barely going to hit our trigger so we get our variance in our drops. We want some big drops and some little drops. We don't want to do a hard pull because we get that consistent mist, and that's not really what we want. Here we go. All right. Now, as the isopropyl evaporates, most of the circles will dissipate, and then all of our fractured lines will come back together, but they won't come back together perfectly straight. So at this point, if you were looking at this and you just really didn't like the shape of a vein, or you thought this was too straight, which it's borderline to me being a little bit too straight, I could add a little bit more blue up here and kind of branch that off. You can do anything you want as long as you get to it in a relatively quick manner. But we'll wait about 3 minutes, give this thing a quick torch. As the isopropyl evaporates, you'll see it'll lay out like glass, and then we'll get you some finished shots of the outcome. So I am going to go ahead and add to this. I just really don't like just how straight this outside line is on this vein. I'm very, very particular when it comes to vein layouts. I want things to look as natural as they possibly can, and you just don't see veins in natural stones staying that straight for that far. So I'm just going to come up here. I'm not really adding a new vein. I'm just trying to make it not be straight. There we go. And just add as much as you need to make it look right. We have a saying here in class that you haven't screwed up until you give up. So if you don't like it, just keep playing with it. You'll be able to get it to a shape that looks organic to you and fits your eye. And that's really the main thing, is that you want it to look natural. So since we added some more blue, we definitely need to add a little bit more spray paint so it fits everything else. Drop a little bit off. Kind of the same amount that we did previously in the other areas. Well, as always, we're going to wipe off the stick before we start spreading the gold, because once I've added the amount of gold I want, I really don't want to put more. The metallic spray paints are very, very prone to pulling up inside the epoxy. They kind of gravitate towards themselves. So you don't want to be adding extra once you have the amount that you want. You want to get that stick clean, or even just grab a new stick and then get it spread out the way you want. So we're going to hit this with some isopropyl, the part that we just added. I'm not going to worry about respraying the entire thing. I'm just going to hit the area that I just added. And to me, to my eye, as I'm just looking at this, this looks more natural now because it doesn't look so straight on this outside line. We'll cover a lot of that if you do become a franchisee to Counterintelligence. During class, we talk about how to spot unnatural looking lines and things of that nature in your pieces, and we teach you how to correct it and how to fix it. So I'm going to give this a quick torch and we'll be finished up. And torching is just going to help pop the remaining bubbles that the isopropyl didn't take care of. This is just trapped air from our techniques that we use to manipulate the colors. All right. So that should take care of it. Doesn't take a whole lot. You don't want to overcook your epoxy. If you get it too hot, it's going to become much looser and it's going to run over your edges more, which is going to distort your artwork even more. So that's just a pro tip. Don't over torch, just torch to just pop the bubbles, because that's really the only purpose for it. So that's pretty much it for this piece. We'll catch you on the next one.